Henry VIII, a king known for his multiple wives and his break with the Catholic Church, is a highly controversial figure in history. But one less talked about subject is how he was fooled out of hundreds of thousands of pounds. This deception was orchestrated by his father-in-law, Ferdinand II of Aragon, and Emperor Maximilian of the Holy Roman Empire. As a newly crowned king, Henry was looking for military glory. He grew up idolizing Henry V and saw France as his mortal enemy. Young, energetic, and coffers full of money that his father had diligently amassed throughout the years, he was eager for war and would soon find a reason for it. In 1512, Pope Julius called for a holy league against France. He claimed that France's territorial land grabs were an attempt to control the world, and the French king's haughtiness had to be punished. Wanting to push their advantage, Henry, Ferdinand, and eventually Maximilian would coalesce together and invade. The only problem was that only Henry took the Pope's call seriously. Promising Henry military support, Ferdinand would instead use him as a distraction while he furthered his own goals. Henry would unfortunately be an easy mark, as he had no experience with international politics. Growing up, his older brother Arthur was trained to be the future King of England, and when Arthur passed, Henry was given the subsequent titles, but was not trained as well as he should have been. This was simply because his father did not trust him. Henry VII viewed his son as materialistic and too easily prone to flattery. He would keep his son's circle very tight and chose who he was allowed to talk to. Thus, when Henry officially came to power, he did not understand the political stage around him. He would marry Catherine, the daughter of Ferdinand, and usually a marriage pact would help build a strong alliance, but not in this case. The political environment had changed, and the marriage was not as advantageous to Ferdinand as it had once been. Understanding that his son-in-law was king to a powerful kingdom and had little experience in conducting war, he would immediately write to please Henry's ego, assuring him of a strong alliance. But he had an ulterior motive. What Ferdinand wanted was to use English troops as a distraction so that he may have an easier path to reclaim territory, specifically Navarre. When the English invaded in 1512, the French would send reinforcements from Navarre to defend against them. At that moment, Spanish soldiers would simply march over and take control. This was exactly what Ferdinand had hoped for. To make matters worse for Henry, Ferdinand would blame him for the initial setbacks of the campaign. The Marquis of Dorset would arrive in France with the intention of attacking Bayonne with Spanish troops, but the Spanish troops would never arrive. As he sat idly for months waiting for reinforcements, disease would break through his camp, eliminating some of the best men in Henry's army. Dorset's troops would then mutiny and sail home. Ferdinand would rebuke Henry sharply for this and imply that this was dishonorable. Henry had not only been shamed by his father-in-law, but had also spent 200,000 ducats on the campaign, all while accomplishing nothing. But Ferdinand wouldn't be the only one to make a fool out of Henry. During another invasion in 1513, Henry would personally lead his armies into French territory in order to strike a decisive blow. Good news would soon arrive, as the Emperor Maximilian would finally agree to join the Holy League and invade France as well. Henry would have a new ally, and Maximilian a new victim. Though respected as the Holy Roman Emperor, Maximilian was widely known for always being on the verge of bankruptcy. But Maximilian would learn how to take advantage of his reputation. Presenting himself as bankrupt, Maximilian could conserve his own resources by pleading poverty. He would also beg for loans, and once they were given, choose to not repay them using the same excuse. One of his greatest strengths was his ability to create the illusion of cooperation and solidarity. He would often position himself as a willing and enthusiastic ally, ready to contribute to joint military ventures. Eager to leave his mark on European politics and secure his own legacy, Henry found himself drawn to Maximilian and the narrative of a united war effort. Maximilian's promises of support and even personal participation in battles was appealing to Henry. This led him to believe that he had a reliable ally in Maximilian, someone who shared his vision and determination. Henry's aspirations for military glory were driven by his desire to emulate the legendary victory at Agincourt. Maximilian would astutely recognize and capitalize on these ambitions. By inflating Henry's ego and presenting him as a heroic figure on the European stage, Maximilian fostered a sense of shared purpose. But Maximilian would reveal to Henry that he had no money and was under heavy debts, making it impossible for him to meet expectations in France. Despite these limitations, he offered Henry access to as many of his cavalry and troops as he desired, as long as he paid for them. Henry would readily agree, as having another emperor fight for him would bolster his prestige, and the extra troops wouldn't hurt either. But Maximilian was double-dealing. At the same time that he was praising Henry and offering him counsel, he was also making a secret peace treaty with France, along with Ferdinand, that would exclude England. But soon the cat was out of the bag and the peace treaties became widely known. Henry would therefore conclude a separate treaty with France and end the campaigning season. His wife, Catherine, would at first defend her father repeatedly. She believed that he was simply a victim of another complex scheme and that he was indeed trustworthy. But after news of the secret treaty leaked out, she would apologize profusely and no longer take her father's words seriously. For his part, Ferdinand did not seem to mind his daughter's disapproval. Catherine had served her purpose, and he had gotten what he wanted out of the King of England. Meanwhile, Maximilian had used the English army to keep France on the defensive for the entire campaigning season. The English would destroy the city Therouanne and neutralize Tournai, which did not hold much advantage for England, but was a priority for Maximilian. Henry was also paying Maximilian £20,000 and an additional £20 per day for the use of his army. Henry was fighting Maximilian's battles and was paying for the honor of doing so. In later years, Henry would once again invade France, but he had learned from his experiences. He was less trusting now and more likely to make secret treaties of his own. Overall, Henry's experiences highlight the complex machinations of European politics in the early 16th century. Family members and allies would have no problem switching sides if it gave them a military or political advantage and would be eager to do so. And though Henry's experience would make him wiser, it would not curtail his excessive spending or ego. England would continue to spend at an unprecedented rate and would be forced to hold off further French invasions after failing to raise taxes. The scheming of Ferdinand and Maximilian would come back to haunt Henry as he would miss his best opportunity to capture France in 1525. After the French king Francis I was defeated and taken prisoner following the Battle of Pavia, Henry rejoiced as his dreams of capturing France was within his reach. But the preceding years of war had drained the treasury. He was not able to refill the coffers since his turbulent invasion with Ferdinand and Maximilian over a decade earlier. Parliament had already raised taxes multiple times to fund Henry's previous invasions, and they would not raise them again. Years had gone by. Ferdinand and Maximilian were no longer around, but Henry was still paying the price for their trickery.